Welcome to the Ambassadorship orientation for ambassadors. We are so glad that you are part of Winston-Salem. I am so glad that you are part of Winston-Salem and that you want to become an ambassador for Winston-Salem. And thank you so much for taking the time to go through this orientation. And honestly, a lot of it is paperwork and just stuff you need to know, but it's stuff that exists to explain why the Winston-Salem ambassadors are the way we are. And some of it is because I worked for previous organizations where this stuff didn't exist. So board of directors didn't go through this, staff didn't go through this. So anybody who wants to come in and be a part of the ambassadors, whether it's the board, an ambassador, or even a volunteer, will go essentially through this process so that we know from the get-go why we're doing what we're doing and who we are. So thank you, and let's get started. Okay, so mission, vision, and values of the Winston-Salem Ambassadors. The mission of the Winston-Salem Ambassadors is to create awareness of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We were created as an educational nonprofit because essentially that's what we do, is educate people about Winston-Salem. And our vision is to make Winston-Salem the best city it possibly can be, a city that is welcoming to all. You are here, our hashtag is hashtag always welcoming, and hashtag better together, because those are the things that we truly believe. During this orientation, I'm not going to read everything to you. We're just going to cover the main points here. I do expect that anybody who goes through this is going to read the whole packet. You should have that in a PDF document that I should have sent to you, that you will be following along with during this presentation and orientation. But the best thing about Winston-Salem, I think, and the ambassadors is that we appreciate our history, so where we came from and how we got to where we are. We recognize our present, and we are also always looking towards the future. So our basic mission is to increase awareness of Winston-Salem. Okay, so goals of the Winston-Salem ambassadors as a whole. And so the ambassadorship program ambassadors are a part of our overall goals for the nonprofit as an organization. We have two goals. We want to make Winston-Salem a better city, and we want to increase recognition of Winston-Salem locally, regionally, and nationally. And a caveat to that is that we want that recognition to be positive. So we don't necessarily want oh yeah, I've heard of Winston-Salem. They have Salem and Winston cigarettes, right? We want it to be, oh, what a great city for food. I had the best macaron there. I had a great brewery tour. Or, it's the first city in the country with an arts council, or city of arts and innovation. Good, positive, forward-thinking recognition is what we want for Winston-Salem. And then, internally, we want to make Winston-Salem a better city always. We never stop trying to make Winston-Salem a better city. So the first part of that is to increase retention of all the people that we have. So we want to keep who we have, right? And then we also want to attract new, and then we want to keep them too. We want to support businesses because that's the way the world works, right? You either have to work to live. And you either do that by working for someone else or having your own business. So we want to support businesses locally and chain, new and established, large and small, and we also want to attract new businesses, locally and chain, to open and be maintaining openness in Winston-Salem. We also want to promote other nonprofits who do that great work in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. There are over 500 nonprofits in Forsyth County, and so we want to really promote the ones who are doing great work. And lastly, we want to put the unity in community, right? So we want people to feel like they are a part of Winston-Salem, to be a part of that family, to feel like they have a place here, because that really, ultimately, that's our biggest goal, because that's what is going to make people satisfied with Winston-Salem, is feeling like they have a part of it here. All right, let's talk about the actual ambassadorship program, the youths who are engaging in doing this great work. So to be a Winston-Salem ambassador under the current ambassadorship program, you have to live and or work here in Winston-Salem and love it and be willing to talk to people about it. So something that's really important for ambassadors to know is that Every ambassador is supposed to meet up at least once quarterly to catch up on current happenings of the city and potentially learn something new. And the goal of that is we all live and work in different arenas, right? We have different interests, different knowledge, and we are only better when we know about those things that are happening in all the different areas. So obviously this is a volunteer position. We want to be as knowledgeable as possible. Again, you don't have to know all the things, but you do have to be willing to help find the things. And we always want to be positive and inclusive. And then the last bullet point is this is a serious commitment, right? So this is a volunteer position, but you are volunteering to represent a city and a place and a people. And the only thing, one of the few requirements of being an ambassador, and you've heard me say this, is can you be welcoming to anyone, whether you like them or not? So there are a lot of people that I do not agree with politically. There are religious aspects that I'm not into, but we believe as an organization, as a nonprofit, that it takes all kinds to make a great city. And so the ambassadors vow to be neutral and welcoming, as often as possible. All right, let's talk about the responsibilities of the ambassador. So you're doing the ambassador orientation right now, and typically you serve a year as an ambassador, and if you want to come back, you can do it again. Just give what you can. I don't expect this to be a full-time job for you, but kind of that second bullet point, number 2 is you're vital to this organization. We are the nonprofit of the people, for the people, by the people. So you are super, super important. And so you making your contacts and your expertise known and accessible is just super, super important. Attend events and meetings whenever you can. Again, not a full-time job, but come when you can. And again, volunteer where you can. Number 7, which actually should be number 6, but I didn't feel like changing it all. And let me tell you why this is the way it is. So it's make a personal financial contribution to the organization and support the ambassador's philanthropic efforts if possible. Typically, there's 2 reasons for that. One is to be able to demonstrate the financial responsibility of anyone involved in the organization. So if we apply for grants and stuff, organizations who give those grants like to see that level of involvement and the numbers as well. And then for the ambassadors in particular, we're still a startup nonprofit. So your t-shirt, your paperwork, any name tags, that is literally the $25 per quarter or $100 per year goes almost 100% to just buying the things for you so that you have them. So that's just a little bit about the personal contribution and the philanthropic efforts. We do have a Patreon account now, which is it's not a membership thing, but it is a monthly thing that you can sign up to support, just apart from your personal gift. So be a goodwill ambassador. That's what we're doing. Tell your family and your friends about what you're doing. Tell new colleagues when you meet them. Say, I am an ambassador for Winston-Salem. I also do this for a living. This is where I live, etc., etc. Just always throw that in there. Again, number 10, stay well informed. Read the newspapers. Read online articles. Just if there's something that you know about, share that with us so that we also know that. If you come to meetings, just try and know as much as possible, be up to date. And then again, just take your responsibility seriously and just know how appreciated you are. It's a really fun thing to be a part of, I promise. All right, so this one is a little bit more boring, but it is, again, something I want you to know of and be aware of. So this first one is prohibition against private inurement and procedures for managing conflicts of interest. It basically means none of the ambassadors, whether it's staff, board, or ambassadorship program, shall derive any personal profit or gain by reason of their service as an ambassador. And basically, if you have any conflicts of interest, just let me know, let the board of directors know. All that you should have access to. Number two, no sexual harassment of any kind ever. I'm gonna let you read the fine print on that, but it's really not a hard thing. Now this one is kind of interesting. Number three, prohibition against harassment and unpleasant behavior. Don't be a jerk. It's as simple as that. And if you have, I really feel there's never any reason to get ugly. And if you ever feel that happening, then just remove yourself from the situation. And then this last one is really, really important. So confidentiality, you're gonna come across some information potentially that maybe you just need to keep to yourself. And then it's kind of like a Vegas situation. Anything that happens in the ambassadors stays with the ambassadors. Okay, so we don't want to take any of that knowledge or insider information and spread it out to the public. So just keep things confidential. You probably won't have to worry about this mostly, but just in case, keep it confidential. There's a non-disclosure agreement towards the end that we will go over, just to cover all the bases, but keep things confidential and you'll be good. All right, so this is the last part of the code of conduct. And what this means is that you're signing on to do something, right? So we expect you to be active. We expect you to participate. Again, not a full-time job. You give what you can when you can. But this is basically just a summary of all of the things that we've already talked about. So I do kind of like that first sentence though. So like be an ambassador with integrity, collegiality, and care. So this includes attend when you can, be prepared, cooperate with and respect the other opinions of ambassadors, leave personal prejudices out, just support the organization when you can, be courteous, and then keep lines of communication open. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. You should have my cell phone number. You should have my email, which is actually a better way to get to me. And just be active and excited and engaged. That's the best part of being an ambassador. All right, so with a degree in nonprofit management, I am a nonprofit nerd. So this statement of values and code of ethics has an introduction because most people don't have a desire to know these things like I do. So just going to the nonprofit fundamentals here. As a matter of fundamental principle, the nonprofit community should adhere to the highest ethical standards because it's the right thing to do. As a matter of pragmatic self-interest, the community should do so because public trust in our performance is the bedrock of our legitimacy. Donors and volunteers support nonprofit organizations because they trust them to carry out our missions, to be good stewards of the resources, and to uphold rigorous standards of conduct. And adherence to the law is the minimum standard of expected behavior. And the Winston-Salem ambassadors must and will and often do more, however, than simply obey the law. So obviously we're going to do our legal requirements, but we also want to be open, transparent, and very responsive. Our values, this is integral, to the basic core of what we do. We are here for the public good. We are accountable to the public. We respect the individual's worth and dignity. We strive very hard for inclusiveness and social justice. Transparency is super, super important. And we want to be real responsible for any resources that we are given. And we are committed to excelling and maintaining our devotion to the public good. Okay, so those things that we just talked about lead directly to the code of ethics that we follow. So those guide the actions that we take in developing our policies and informing our practices. So everyone who works for or with the ambassadors conducts themselves in the utmost personal and professional integrity. We have a clearly stated mission that we follow. And governance, we have a board of directors for the nonprofit. They govern the overall existence of the Winston-Salem ambassadors. We will comply with legal requirements, but we will also be responsible stewards of the trust that we are given. Disclose all the things, be very open. This one's kind of interesting, kind of the nonprofit nerd part. We will evaluate the programs and practices that we have. We'll examine them, we'll see how effective they are, and then, tweak as necessary. Are we fulfilling our mission? Are we helping, et cetera, et cetera? And we want to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. And all of these, just keep in mind, these are things that we strive for. Perfection is probably just not possible, but we always want to strive to do the best we possibly can. And I know there's work to be done on all of the above. And so we will always constantly strive to do the best we can with our practices and trying to fulfill our policies appropriately. Okay, so it's time for my absolute favorite document of all time concerning the Winston-Salem ambassadors. It's our inclusivity agreement. This is truly the basis of everything we do. So it basically covers everything, including the discrimination kind of policy. We don't discriminate. We try not to discriminate for any reason, including race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, age, ability or disability, marital status, citizenship, or genetic information. So it doesn't matter if you're old or you're young, regardless of your race or nationality. We love you if you're gay, if you're not gay, if you're asexual, non-binary, any of the things. Who you love, who you don't love, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, or none of the above. Something we do recognize is the separation of church and state, and that's something that we kind of really promote as an organization. We welcome Republicans and Democrats, Independents, Green Party, or the non-political. We may not agree personally, but the Winston-Salem ambassadors, board, staff, ambassadorship program ambassadors or envoys, or volunteers take no sides and try to treat all with fairness and equity, not just equality, but equity. And ultimately, here it is. We believe that Winston-Salem is a place for everybody, and I pledge to include all and exclude none. And so this is a document that you will sign, and this is what we live by. Okay, so this is what we mentioned earlier. This is the non-disclosure agreement. I am definitively not going to read the whole thing because it's a lot of boring legal words, but essentially the NDA is just for the purpose of preventing the unauthorized disclosure of confidential information as defined below. So just make sure you read it. And it doesn't really mean anything except for that confidentiality portion. Like, you're not going to talk about stuff they're not supposed to talk about. It's just standard non-disclosure agreement. So the major programs that the Winston-Salem ambassadors do, the first one is our workshops, and they're a series of guided conversations. We do those quarterly, and they're held in various locations. We try and do them all around Winston-Salem. Typically, our connections have been downtown, and so several of we have to go where we can do it for free, essentially. So our workshops have usually been held at the downtown locations, but they're supposed to be held all across the city. We do Second Saturdays, which is essentially a block party. It used to be called Second Sundays on 4th, and we changed it this year to be held on the second Saturday of the month. We've done 2 already, so we had May and June. Fortunately, we were rained out for both, and we also have September and October scheduled. Those are held in the Winston Cup Museum parking lot, so right beside the Winston Cup Museum off MLK. We do Welcome to Winston-Salem orientations. Those are held 2 or 3 times a year, also at various locations. Thus far, they have been done at the downtown library, which has a really great auditorium that is able to be used. We hope to do one this fall, and it may be held at Wake Forest University, but not sure about that yet. Tours are held as needed. This is something that I would love to train you guys to do. Thus far, they've primarily been me driving people around in my car and telling people things. And then last but never ever least is welcoming. Everything we do, that's what it says all the time, goes back to being welcoming, and it's done all over Winston-Salem. And so those are kind of an overview of the major quote-unquote programs that we do. Okay, so Types of ambassador and envoy roles. These are just suggestions of some of the things that you can do. Tours. So you can do driving or walking. I would love to be able to offer walking tours of various parts of the city. And a lot of what we do are coffee conversations and one-on-one meetings and lunches. So you don't need my permission to go and meet with people to be an ambassador. I want you to have a lot of self-initiative in any of these things. When we do have presentations, lectures, sessions, you are welcome to speak. I will train you to give your own presentations. I would love to be able to do that. We do need assistance at the various events that we do. You're our boots on the ground, and so we need arms and legs and bodies and all kinds of things. Eventually, I hope to have a presence when there are conventions and meetings and big things happening in town. And so you would be literally, again, boots on the ground. And then attending meetings on behalf of the ambassadors or doing networking as an ambassador. And really just anything that you can think of that you're willing to represent as an ambassador. Pop-ups. We can do those at any time. You can just grab a coffee at Twin City Hive and have a little sign that says, I am an ambassador. Feel free to come by and talk to me. If you're going to church or luncheon, just tell people that you're an ambassador. So these are just some of the suggestions of things that you can do as a role as an ambassador. Okay, some basic Winston-Salem facts to know. So the city of Winston-Salem, which is located inside of Forsyth County, has a little bit over 245,000 citizens now, and some numbers even say 248 and 250, but definitely over 245,000. Winston-Salem is located in the county of Forsyth. Forsyth County has approximately 377,000 folks living in the county. This is something that you really need to know. The Winston-Salem Department non-emergency number is 336-773-7700. Memorize that one because you can report anything from aggressive panhandling to someone sleeping on a bench, somebody being ugly, or an actual crime happening. 773-7700 is Winston-Salem non-emergency police department number. The city of Winston-Salem is a city manager government. So there are 8 council members who represent the ward, and then the mayor, who only votes in the case of a tie. So he's the tiebreaker. Voters go to the poll every 4 years in November, and each of the council members represents a ward. So the city council is responsible for providing ordinances, rules, regulations, and it approves the budget and sets property taxes and user fees. And in that vein, anything you need otherwise that doesn't involve the police is you need CityLink. They can handle almost anything. So you can dial 311 or it's 336-727-8000, or you can email them or report through the City of Winston-Salem website. They can really report, they can do anything from giving you directions to a building downtown to fixing potholes on the street. And the best part about CityLink is that when you call, you can get a reference number. And so if you're calling to report something, you get a reference number, you write it down, and if you don't see it, whatever the issue is being resolved, and you could call back and be like, hey, I have reference number 827510, what's going on with that? And they can follow up on it and make sure things happen. And so that is the greatest tool because it makes our city and our communities run so much more smoothly. And it's just people don't even know all that CityLink can do. But we do. Okay, so some facts and trivia. So Winston and Salem have only been merged since 1913, right? So Salem was settled by members of the Moravian Church, which is interestingly enough, it's considered the oldest Protestant denomination. They were seeking religious freedom, and the land was available here in North Carolina, and it was purchased from John Carteret, who was the second Earl of Granville, to settle. They actually picked this area because of the fertile farmland and quite frequent access to water. So there's lots of streams and creeks around here that they could use. There were multiple settlements in the area before Salem was settled, including Bithynia and Bethabara, but Salem was always designed to be the primary, biggest hub. Salem became a hub of business in the region at that time because when the Moravians came down here, they knew there wasn't anyone really here. So they brought with them all kinds of skilled tradespeople and craftsmen, bakers, cobblers, masons, gunsmiths, doctors, educators. And so people came to Salem because there was all these people that could be utilized by the outside places. Interestingly enough, Salem Academy and College, which is the oldest continuously operating women's educational institution in the country, began officially in 1766 when Sister Elizabeth Osterline walked from Pennsylvania to Salem. And then on 1772, the Little Girls' School was founded, and then that would become Salem Academy and College. Salem was among the first to admit students of color, which is awesome. And I love that the Moravians had a focus on listening to women in their business practices, and they were much more valued as a sex than most other places in that time. So that was really cool. And in 1849, Forsyth County was created. At that time, the local governments had decided that it just wasn't practical for citizens to be able to travel all the way to the capital, which used to be in Wilmington before it was in Raleigh. But either way, it was too far for people to travel, so they appointed local magistrates and created counties for citizens to have a closer relationship with their government. And so in 1849, Forsyth County was created, but Salem, being the church-led congregation that it was not willing to be the county seat. So they sold land 1 mile north from Salem Square is the Forsyth County Courthouse to become the new courthouse town, the new county seat, the town. And they called it the county town for 30 to 40 years before it was officially named Winston, after Joseph Winston, who was a local boy, Revolutionary War hero and statesman. After some really great growing, thriving business creation and local great railroad access, which later brought Richard Joshua Reynolds into the tobacco farming and selling process. Salem merged with Winston in 1913 after a couple failed attempts, becoming known as Winston-Salem. And the U.S. Postal Service actually started designating Winston and Salem, Winston-Salem, because they were so closely entwined anyway. Ironically, you can't put the hyphen into the United States Postal Service online right now, which is hilarious because they were the ones who named us that in the first place. So one of the nicknames for Winston-Salem is Camel City because of our historic ties to the Reynolds tobacco factory. So Richard Joshua Reynolds came from Patrick County, Virginia, and came to the nearest town with the largest and best access to the railroad, which was Winston-Salem. And so in the 1880s, there were about 40 different tobacco factories in Winston-Salem, and it was just a natural hub for tobacco. So he came here, he started his business, just did really, really well, was just a successful businessman. And, it ended up becoming a huge empire. And at one point, more than a third or 2/3, I can't remember which, of the city was employed by Reynolds. And if you didn't work there, then your family did, or your friends did, or your neighbors did. It was just a huge deal in Winston-Salem. So he just did enormously well. And, allegedly, as employers go, there was a good company to work for. They provided at cost lunches and child care, and they gave stocks to their employees. So these factory workers would, retire from working at Reynolds as millionaires because it had become such a successful company. And it was a very philanthropic environment. So the Reynolds family themselves gave tons of money to the cities. Their top executives, the Gray family, gave tons of money. So they would endow parks and high schools and the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. And one of the reasons we have so many nonprofits in Forsyth County is that history of philanthropy. And we have the model for the Empire State Building. It's a beautiful Art Deco building. It was built in 1921. It's 21 stories. It's 1/3, I believe, of the actual Empire State Building in New York. And they also built the Nissen building, which was absolutely vital to the revitalization of downtown Winston-Salem. And so it's just one of those things that you have to know about at least a little bit to be an ambassador of Winston-Salem. It's a fascinating history, and there's books and books and books written about it, but that's just kind of a bare bones minimum. So another nickname for Winston-Salem is the City of Arts and Innovation. After talking to about 700 to 1,400 people, the city decided that was a great tagline for us. And a lot of that is because of the Innovation Quarter. So Reynolds was king for a long time, but it decided in the 80s to merge with Nabisco, which ended up being a just disaster in the age of corporate mergers and takeovers. The new CEO decided to move the headquarters away from Winston-Salem, so thousands upon thousands of people were laid off. AT&T had a plant here and employed about 3,000 people. Because of deregulation, they ended up shutting down. We had the second largest trucking company in the United States, and I don't know if it's McLean or McLean. I think it's McLean Trucking. Also, because of deregulation, they had a terrible time. They ended up laying off thousands of people. So in the 80s, over the course of a year and a half, over 10,000 jobs were lost. And so it was a really, really bad time in Winston-Salem at that time. Downtown was abandoned. There were no shops. There were no restaurants. There were no art galleries. It was not a good time to be downtown. And so local leaders decided that between Wake Forest School of Medicine, between Wake Forest University and their need for engineering, they decided they hired consultants, and they were told that they needed to capitalize on their intellectual capital. And so they decided to create a research park. So Reynolds donated or sold a building to create a little research park with the hopes of, if that went well, then it would become a huge research park. And essentially that is what happened. So the Innovation Quarter is now there was 120 empty buildings at the edge of downtown, empty factories, warehouses, power plants that were just sitting there. And the Reynolds company was advised to get rid of those buildings and tear them down because they were, assets that weren't doing them any good and in fact were costing them money. But at that point, the Reynolds company was like, okay, I think we've made a mistake here and we need to hold on to this and get back to our community roots. So the Innovation Quarter was created out of that, and now it is a huge, thriving, fascinating hub of all kinds of things. So biomedical science, information technology, technology pure and simple, digital media, clinical services, advanced materials. They are creating commercial products down there, and they're actually led by a man named Dr. Anthony Atala. They are growing down there at the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. They are growing human tissues and organs and doing all kinds of cell therapies that is just miraculous. Is a little strong, but amazing to think about. And there's over 300 companies down there and like thousands of people. And almost all of the academic institutions here in Winston-Salem have a presence down there as well. One of the largest tenants is Inmar, which started as a coupon clearinghouse and now they were one of the first and biggest players in data, and they still are. And that also translated into computer technologies, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So, once all those tenants were in there, then the living and the eating and the shopping came. And so you can kind of live, work, play down there. The innovation quarter is a big deal. So that's a part of the innovation part of the arts and innovation. So it's always really interesting to talk about the way that people think and talk about our city. So some of the nicknames for Winston-Salem are Tray 4, area code is 336, the Dubs for WS Winston-Salem, Reynoldstown, Town of the Tobacco Belt, Camel City, City of Arts and Innovation, Twin City, which is my personal favorite because it acknowledges Salem and Winston and the merger, and a newer one that a lot of people don't like is Dash City. They call it that because of the dash in between our names, which is in fact not a dash but a hyphen. But you know, hyphen city is just not a great nickname. And of course, our baseball team, the Winston-Salem Dash, uses Dash City a lot. I kind of like it because it's fun and trendy, and it's very different than anything we've had before. We also are super lucky to have 6 colleges and universities here in Winston-Salem. If you want an educational institution, we have it. And every single one is different, which is super, super cool. So we already talked about Salem Academy and College, which is the oldest women's college in the country. We have a fantastic historically Black college and university in Winston-Salem State University. We have, of course, the Wake Forest University, which we lured from Wake Forest, North Carolina. We have the first arts conservatory in the country, an amazing institution, University of North Carolina School of the Arts. We have Forsyth Technical Community College, which is just a great option for a 2-year degree. And then you can always transfer to a 4-year if you so desire. Or you can go get a job. And then we also have a Christian-based university, which is growing steadily in Piedmont International University. Something to note is that we do have every single kind of college and university that you could possibly want. But it's a tenet of the organization. One of the things that we promote culturally is that you don't have to have a college degree to be successful. We have lots and lots of jobs and opportunities that don't necessarily involve a college or university. That being said, if you want it, we really do have it. All right, so that was a lot of information and we are almost done. This is just a kind of reminder, wrap up portion of the orientation. So we're going to kind of go over rules of ambassadorship, if you will. Safety first. First of all, foremost, safety first. Never ever put yourself in danger. When in doubt, call the police, 336-773-7700. Do memorize that. Just good to know. Conduct yourself professionally, if you will. So you are representing a city and a people. And when you're in doubt, or if you're like me and you have road rage, just remind yourself, I am an ambassador. I am an ambassador. While acting as an ambassador, never ever talk badly about anyone, anything, or any place. Instead, have a positive replacement suggestion. So I'm going to talk about this just between us. There was a certain coffee shop in town. I believe it is no longer open, but they ended up having a terrible time. They talked badly about someone's gender identity and then defended their actions on social media. And instead of saying, hey, don't go to that coffee shop, you know, I'd say, gosh, you know, we have so many great coffee shops. We have Twin City Hive, we have West End Coffee House. There are so many. What kind do you want? So just have a positive replacement suggestion. Number 3, seek to be helpful, right? So our job as ambassadors is to increase awareness of Winston-Salem. And however that applies per person is going to be different. So we want to be as helpful as possible in the hopes that we will keep whoever that is engaged in our city. And if you don't know the answer to anything, that is okay, as long as you are willing to find out the answer to whatever the question or common concern may be. Okay, so this is not a hard, fast, live and die rule, but it is a request that I would make of you. Concerning social media. So as I hope you have gotten from this, I want you to remember that you're an ambassador, right? Again, I cannot require this of you, but I would ask to not engage in anything controversial, not even if it's considered remotely controversial. You know, we cannot, again, require this, but you are an ambassador, and because we're such a new organization, anybody involved with the organization, it might come back on the ambassadors if you get into a social media fight. So, again, and this is something that we do, we always promote positive. So happy things, cool things, success stories are the best things to share. You'll see that often on the Winston-Salem Ambassadors Facebook page. Cool young entrepreneurs or a great success story. And honestly, there are just so many negative things online these days. Let's drown out the negative with the positive. And last but not least, if you're in doubt, ask, please. Ask me, ask a board member, ask another ambassador. And again, there's my cell phone. It's 336-775-7102. But email or text probably is the best way to contact me with a question, comment, or concern, because I can flag it, I can follow up with it. And we do have a whole board of advisors and a directory. You should have access to a directory. If you do not, let me know. I will get that for you. Just when in doubt, ask. And thank you so much for engaging in this. I really appreciate it. All right, my friends, that is about it. You've been doing this for 40 minutes now, maybe longer if you stop to take breaks. But I just want to repeat again how grateful I am for you, how grateful I am that you volunteered to do this, how grateful and honored I am that you believe in the mission. And just, I'm so appreciative of the time that you've taken to do this and the time that you will take to do this and the energy and the effort. It's a really great thing to be a part of. We created the Winston-Salem Ambassadors with the hope of making Winston-Salem a better place and making people, especially people who aren't from here, feel like they are a part of something, like make them feel like they are a part of a community, make them feel wanted and make them feel important. I think the world can use as much of that as humanly possible. And for you to be a part of that, I just can't even tell you how touched I am that you've taken the time and the energy and the effort to do this. And I thank you and I appreciate you. And please let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and I will see you very soon. Thank you.